Hi, and welcome everyone to Whole Soul School and Foundation's Fireside Chats for June 2020. My name is Marie Mohler, and I am an author, intuitive, and co-founder of Whole Soul School and Foundation. I am here with my co-host and co-founder, Lacy Frazer, who is a clinical psychologist by training and a practicing life coach and consciousness educator today. Welcome back, everyone, to our Inspiring Fireside Chats podcast series. I want to first remind our listeners that our mission here at Whole Soul School and Foundation is to educate, enrich, integrate, and liberate the heart and soul in people worldwide. We offer engaging podcasts and weekly inspirational messages on social media platforms. And we support other projects and philanthropic organizations and missions that educate and empower people whose lives have been impacted by incarceration and the court or prison systems in the U.S. and in the world. We hold a core belief that the conversation and the connections we share here is the education. And without further ado, I want to invite Lacy to the conversation today. Welcome.
Hi, Marie. So good to be here.
It is good to be back together and sharing about these important concepts and energies and sharing with our audience here. So I just wanted to say a few things that kind of came through my heart, Lacy, before we really get into things. But we are in a time of incredible change in our world today.
That is for sure.
Much of what many people thought were the norms of everyday life have shifted, streamlined, released, or transformed in some pretty incredible ways in 2020. And in many ways, what we are all experiencing in this period of time that has been known for some time is the Great Awakening. And that is a podcast that we will have some more time to talk about. I know, Lacy, we will talk about that some other time, but I just want to seed that in people's consciousness that the earth is going through a kind of renaissance, an awakening process. We talked about that a little bit more last year in 2019 when we talked about the hero's journey, and we were preparing our listeners and our audience here to take that journey. And here we are in 2020 where we have to call on those hero skills. We have to call on those skills that we're building. And if this is the first time somebody's listening to us, stay with us. And you can always go back also into the archives and access some of those really rich conversations that weren't just between the two of us, but that we had with many guests over the course of the 12 months of last year. So, but for today anyway, I just wanted to seed that consciousness of the Great Awakening into our conversation. And I want to mention that whether or not people believe that we are experiencing a global shift in consciousness, right, affecting the entire planet, whether or not we believe in that, I think we can all agree that certain events in 2020 have dramatically affected the flow of our daily lives. And those changes might be something that people experience as challenges or adventures. And that it is our perspective and our lens of life that greatly impacts the way we experience these times. So I thought we could delve further into that today with some of our, what we want to share together, as well as some other inspirations that might come through us in this connection.
Yeah, as I listen to you introduce Whole Soul School and Foundation in this particular podcast, Marie, I'm really I'm so aware of our world today and all that is happening, and I think both you and I agree that Whole Soul School and Foundation, we set out a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, I guess, to be a voice to help educate and liberate the spirit, the soul, and we are still that. But I feel more than ever that we are a place for positivity, for inspiration, and absolutely for tools to teach, tools and skills to help anybody at whatever level they're journeying right now in this life and on this world, to help people have a set of skills that they may not otherwise have acquired, or that could help them in a way that they may not have been aware of before. And I think, mainstream media and the world at large, they're not focusing on the positive. They're not focusing on
what brings people together.
I was going to say the unity consciousness, right? What we can do together as a collective to help each other, support each other, and to rise together. And I think Whole Soul School and Foundation, and eventually Whole Soul Mastery, is that and will be that in the future. So I'm thrilled to be here again with you. When we can find our way to the mic, it's, life is very, very busy, and it isn't always super easy to find our way here together to have these conversations. But every time I sit down to do it, it always feels so good and so right, and like we're really doing something good in the world. So I feel very blessed to be here. And I know today we want to talk a bit about something that absolutely can dramatically impact a person's experience of their life, and that is their perspective on life. That is the lens they look through will determine how they experience life. And I happen to be working now, and I work as a coach and a wellness coach, and I'm working every day with a lot of people, and I have really recognized how important one's perspective is, the angle kind of at which people look at their life. And we've talked about this in different ways at different times. We've talked in 2019, we talked a lot about energy and the truth that we are energetic beings living in an energetic universe, pulling into our experience vibrational matches to what we're putting out. And so now more than ever before, we must be cognizant of the energy that we're putting out. And one way we can be cognizant of that is how we are looking at life. And so when I was sort of thinking about this topic, I was thinking about how many ways I have heard from other people kind of how they look at life. And there are people who view life as a challenge. Life is a challenge, and we can talk about the energy of that. Life is full of trials and tribulations, right? You can look at life as a journey, and that has its own energy and its own kind of framework. Or you can, most recently, I have found myself talking the most about life as an adventure. So I thought maybe we could dive in just a little bit into each of these perspectives on life, kind of the energy they hold, and maybe a little bit about how important it is to shift. Kind of if we're viewing life as a challenge, maybe what we can do is just shift into life as a journey. And if we're feeling life as a journey, maybe we shifting into life as an adventure would bring us a whole new perspective. So how does that sound to you?
It sounds good. I just wanted to add something to that, and I'm sure we're going to talk about as we delve into each one of those. But if I added 3 things, right, that the lens we see through becomes the words we choose to express ourselves in our life, because it comes from what we feel, right? And we choose words that match what we see, and what we feel, we say. And what we see and we feel and we say is what we experience. So from sight to speech to experience, and those things all go together. So if our lens, and maybe we want to take that first topic, which is life is a challenge, right? And the many ways that can show up for all of us, right? None of us are immune to the changes and potential challenges in life. But we do have the power to manage and choose and control, if you will, is how we think about it, is the choice we make, how we view it. And so it's very important that we're aware that as we go through the 3 steps that you're talking about, the challenge, the journey, and the adventure, it's the lens through which we look through, and then the words we're choosing, that's ultimately bringing about the experiences that we're having. And the more you talk about it, the more you see what you're talking about, the more you're experiencing the way, the story
right?
you're telling.
Right.
And it becomes a bit of a loop and a cycle. And so if we were at the level of challenge, because 2020 has brought a tremendous amount of change into many people's lives, and when we're not empowered by our school systems and our families of origin a lot of times, because oftentimes they didn't have the language either. We have not been given this empowering language and these tools. So along the way in our hero's journey, we often pick up the swords of truth and the other tools that we need to empower us in the journey. And a big tool is this understanding of language and what we're talking about with challenge. Right, with challenge,
understanding perspective.
And adventure. But these are words, and words also work together with what we see through the lens we see through.
Right.
They work hand in hand,
absolutely.
Right, that perspective, and then we express our perspective with our words.
Right.
And then those words go out into the universe and come back to us a little bit. It could be a positive boomerang or it could be a negative boomerang, and it creates our experience.
So if we're somebody who looks through a lens that says life is a challenge,
right,
then what comes with that is the sense that it sort of, in my opinion, it sort of sets us up for the expectation of struggle, sets us up for problems, right? Sets us up for hard work.
Well, and a lack of something. Because
Yes.
when we see something as challenging or hard work or whatever, there's another underlying perspective and belief system that we can't access the resources we need to overcome any challenge. So when we're thinking from a perspective of challenge, we don't have enough, we don't have the right people, we don't have the right money, we don't know the path, we don't have anything that's going to get us out of that dark forest inside ourselves. And we can go into a tremendous amount of fear, right? Because challenge
and also
triggers a lot of those feelings that are kind of lower vibrational words that make us not feel so good, right?
And also more of a victim mentality.
The world is happening to me. I have to face this challenge.
Right. Right. And so trials and tribulations, these are words. I mean, these are all words that come as we look through that lens, right?
That connects with our speech.
Right.
Right.
So as we use these words, challenge, problem, trial, tribulation.
You can think about, and somebody who is challenged, if I said, hey, Lacy, and you're a challenged person, and I say, how are you today? What's the kind of response of people, how you doing? How does a challenged person respond to that greeting?
I'm challenged today by everything that's going on in my life. Did you know he did this and she did that? And I don't have enough to deal with this problem. And if I only whatever.
Can you believe this happened and then this happened and this happened?
Right.
But really, or a lot of people just say, I'm getting by. Right?
Right.
I'm alive.
Right. I'm surviving. Yeah.
I'm getting through.
Right.
And you'll see as we talk about the other words and lenses of perception we might have, how the response might be different. But we all have either felt that response of the challenged person because we've said those words ourselves, or we know someone in our life who would respond in that way that we all know. And there's also the complainer. It's kind of an archetype of a complainer personality, whether it's you or whether it's someone in your life. We all can remember, the people in our life that have that lens of perception, and somehow something that is challenging is always going on.
Well, and I was just feeling as you were saying that the person who looks at life as a challenge is always looking for a challenge. And when you're always looking for a challenge, what are you going to get?
It's the way the universe
It's the
works.
way you see it. So it's the way you see it, and then it becomes the way you speak about it. Oh, woe is me. Oh, I can't believe it. And then that has an energy that is pulling back into your experiences more challenge.
And we've talked about this in the other podcast in 2019 in the hero's journey, but I just want to say our words are our wand and they're our command to the universe. But first what happens is a perception goes through the filter of our eyes or our senses in some way, even if it's not our vision, right? It just comes into our sensory field and we're perceiving something through our senses. And then we have a perspective on what we're perceiving, right? But then it almost always, we have a response and it comes out our mouths. It comes out our voice. And we start to language what we perceived and how we're experiencing what we perceived. And that's really powerful, because when people are saying, I'm just getting by, I'm barely treading water, I'm really struggling, right? And that might be a reality of a challenge or something, a task or something you're having to meet in your life right now. But there are other ways and other tools to talk about what that is if you had a different perspective that would neutralize the painful energies about that. And when you started giving your command to the universe, it wouldn't automatically attract more to complain about, more to feel challenged by. And when people don't have this tool, Lacy, they're just on a solid repeat, because right? They just keep pressing the repeat button.
Well, and I also think this same viewpoint or perspective comes with a lack of ability to see solutions, a lack of ability to even know there could be a different way.
Well, because the challenge, if the challenge was a size, just as metaphor, right? When people who see any task in front of them and they come from that complaining, challenged, lack-oriented perspective, it might be a 10-foot boulder, right, that they're standing in front of. It's just massive. And they can't see around anything else around it, because that's the only thing they can see.
Exactly.
Right? And it's kind of an immovable rock in front of them that now they're like, well, how am I going to get out of this?
Right. And it blocks the view to any other possibility.
It absolutely blocks their view. Right.
So let's talk about how just making a small shift in perspective could help with the language and the actual experience of life. So if we were to move slightly, sort of, I say, it's not really my words, it's actually Esther Hicks's words, up the emotional scale, and we were to move into life is a journey. Now let's just feel that as compared to life is a challenge.
Big difference.
Big difference. Life is a journey. Now, I don't know about you, but I feel like there's a lot of emotional charge that just got taken out of that.
It did.
Right? It almost like it neutralizes everything. And life is a journey sort of takes the energetic charge out of it. It sort of neutralizes the experience. There are not a lot of expectations that come with life as a journey, right? Kind of implies we take things as it comes. Everything's a learning experience. It's kind of also honors the power of the present moment, right?
Yeah.
When we look through the lens of life is a journey.
I was just, when you were talking, we didn't talk about any of this really beforehand, but we're just sharing in this conversation, which I love, because it's really just coming straight from our hearts and what comes to us, which is kind of how the energy of the universe moves through all of us. I felt this concept of the bank account also as a metaphor. And, say we all started off this journey with, let's just for ease, $100. But you're somebody who's grown up with a tremendous amount of challenge, and you don't have any of these tools, and you have this 10-foot boulder that actually follows you everywhere. You can't get it to move out of the way, but it's like a companion in your life that is always there, and there are always hurdles and blocks and things that get in the way of what you really want, and all you seem to have is just, the cards are stacked against you. And if we saw this as a bank account, to go into another metaphor, but I just want to say this because in the challenged person and the person who feels like they've got a lot to complain about because this boulder is really heavy and blocking everything that they might desire, right? Every negative thought and complaint that they're saying as a command to the universe, subtracts $1 from that bank account, right? And so, if you're on your way to work and just one day, you could lose the whole $100. I mean, in just one day, you could lose that balance. Then you're into debt because you didn't just lose $10 or $50. If you're somebody who's really oriented to life as a challenge and it is really hard and there's never going to be a solution to fix it and this boulder never goes anywhere except for right next to your side all the time, blocking anything good that you ever wanted to come to you. It's very easy to get in that cycle, and it's a slippery slope that you can't get out of the treadmill of complaining and struggle. And before you know it, you're like, I start out with $100 today, even if it's just every day you got a new $100.
And they'd say, see, I told you.
Right?
Know?
Exactly.
The bank account's going lower and lower, and there's something I can do about it.
Right? Exactly. And, they drive over a nail in the road, and right there's $500 bill for new tires or whatever it might be, right? But that's their experience, and then they're in the negative deficit. So now they're in credit card debt. So the challenge, that the kind of lens of looking through the life of challenge is always kind of depleting us and taking away. When I felt you talking about life as a journey, in some ways, I just want to say in this metaphor that we're using here, I didn't feel it subtractive or additive.
Right.
I just felt you kind of neutral about accepting that life is going to bring experiences, some good and some bad, and you're going to meet that with a certain kind of neutrality, and that's going to be okay. So your bank account that you started at $100, you didn't go up to $200. You didn't pay in with a lot of positive energy. But life is a journey in this metaphor, at least how we're teaching this today, is that you're kind of at a 0 point. You're just right there, exactly what you started with, and it maintains itself because you've done nothing to complain and lose money and attract more experiences where you have to pay out and pay out and pay out and struggle. And we'll get to the third one in a minute, but you are accepting. There's an acceptance about the life you're living, and that it is a journey, and sometimes it pans out in your favor, and sometimes there are challenges, but you seem to more confidently get through it. And you're not the person who comes to work, or when people ask you how you're doing it, those people might say, I'm fine. Because it's nice and neutral.
I'm doing okay.
I'm doing okay.
I'm maintaining.
Right? That's exactly right. And that's what you would expect with life is a journey in that way.
Well, the other thing, when I also hear you repeat life is a journey over and over again, I'm also thinking about the life is a journey, not a destination saying, to the people who are all about trying to set goals and mile markers and strive to some kind of end goal, and they're not enjoying the present moment. So in that sense, life as a journey is very positive, because you really are, in a sense, you're living more in the present moment, and you're not so focused on an end goal. Does that make sense?
Well, it made perfect sense. I mean, gosh, I didn't expect all these metaphors because we, didn't have this plan. But I feel like now in that context that you just said that to me, I'm aware that challenge is an energy of the past, because all we've ever had was the rock. So we're stuck in the path of the past when we're really looking through life as a challenge, right?
Right.
And we remember all the times that life hasn't gone well for us.
Yes.
When life is a journey, you're meeting it in the present moment, and you're not attached to the past, and you're not terribly anxious about the future. You're just right there in that center point, really kind of in a way trusting the flow and knowing that you'll meet it wherever it meets you. And there's something really beautiful and you still have some money in the bank if we pull in the other metaphor we're working with.
So what if we looked at life as an adventure through the lens of adventure, that life is an adventure? And I personally have found myself, I pay attention to my own patterns of language. I pay attention to other people's patterns of language, but I pay attention to my own, because a lot of times we're talking and themes come up when I'm working with people.
Right.
And this is one of those themes that I've been saying more and more that I view right now through the lens I'm looking through. I'm finding myself more and more feeling like life is an adventure. And with that, to me, comes a sense of excitement. It feels more, it feels more open. Okay, here's my metaphor.
Okay, here we go.
It's a day of metaphors. It's a self-propelling lawnmower versus a push mower. Feel the energy of that. Like, you don't mow the lawn, so you may not know this.
But I watch a lot of people who mow lawns, including you.
Yeah. So. But life as an adventure is kind of like, the lawnmower propels itself, and I'm attached to it, I'm connected to it, and I'm helping it move forward, and I'm riding with it, but there's a momentum to it, and it's exciting, and I feel that, there's an openness to it, there's a positive energy to it, I'm kind of embracing the highs and the lows. I'm embracing the winding turns, the plateaus, the straight lines of life. I know around every curve and corner, there's a new adventure. There's a new something that is going to enhance my life in some way that I will learn from.
There's a passion and a fun and a playfulness and an engagement
Yes.
with what you're talking about versus more the passive, past tense persona
Yes.
that's in the challenge life.
Yes.
And the more neutral persona that's in the journey of life. There's an engaged, like, today's awesome.
Moving forward.
I wonder what's going to happen today.
Right.
I can't wait to see what I get to, do today and who I'm going to meet and what awesome things are going to happen for me and the people around me. There's this sense of, like you said, excitement.
Yeah.
And I would say to you, if you're the person who is having, and that life is an adventure, how are you today, Lacy?
I'm great. I'm great.
Right? People might say I'm fabulous.
Right.
Right? It's a fantastic day.
It's a new day.
It's a new day.
It's a new day that will bring new lessons and new adventures.
Yeah, and I'm excited to to see what unfolds today.
Yeah.
And to participate in that.
Exactly.
It's a whole different conversation.
And that word, that enfoldment, I mean, that's another kind of energetic match to this adventure. Life is an unfoldment. Whether you look at it as a page at a time or a layer of an onion or whatever, but there's an unfoldment that's happening and I'm riding with it. I'm working with it. I'm becoming a better human because of it.
Exactly. And we're becoming the solution. We're becoming the path that we need to take in order to transcend any challenges. And that's why the adventurer isn't sweating. They're not sad. They're not. They could be challenged. They could know there's a challenge or some task or some issue they're facing in their life. And they could still have the most incredibly positive attitude that's authentic. Because
absolutely.
Right? And it's important to distinguish. There can be people who are uber positive, but they're actually not energetically in that space. So they're saying a lot of words, but their energy is saying something different. When we reference the person that sees life as a challenge, the person who sees it as a journey, and the person who sees it as an adventure, we're talking about the people really embodying the energy of those words.
Correct.
Challenge, journey, adventure. And when you're aligned with the energy of adventure, adventure is what you shall have.
Well, and I think it's also an important point here that traditionally to a lot of people, adventure might mean going bungee jumping or whitewater rafting or hiking or whatever, and
extreme sports
or even just camping or whatever. For me, I can have an adventure doing the laundry. I can have an adventure cleaning my house. I can have an adventure, out in the yard. Right. When it's really through the lens of adventure. What am I going to find today? What treasure am I going to find?
Exactly.
What's going to happen that's going to help work with me to enhance my life?
Artists, and I'm a writer, and I feel that, and you're a creator, and you're a teacher, and you could be driving, you could be mowing the lawn, or any of those things.
Yeah, exactly.
And get the best idea ever.
And that's what I'm trying to, you said it better than I could, but it's not actually the act of doing the yard. It's the excitement and the anticipation about what's going to come to me or happen with me or what's going to get created during that time.
Because through your lens of adventure and your words of adventure becomes your experience of adventure.
Yes.
And when you've lined those things up, that your perception is one of fun and playfulness and excitement, and you love treasures and blessings and synchronistic events that affirm the magic of the universe.
Yes.
I mean, that's all part of the adventurer's life. And when you know that, you just have to show up every day with that level of belief, that lens that you see through. Your words need to match that. So you can't be the adventurer and be the complainer. They don't match.
Right.
And the universe won't even care exactly how you're looking, but it will totally be listening to what you're talking about and feeling about and creating energy around. So you can say, "How are you?" And somebody can say, "Fabulous." And then they go to their desk and they go to the water cooler or whatever at work. Can you believe that guy did that yesterday? And they've got all the 10 complaints and all the things and all the challenges they face, right, lined up. Then you really can't claim yourself as an adventurer, because the universe listens to energy and vibration, which we've talked about. We're just bringing that into people's consciousness again. So you have to be authentic in your expression, right? You can't just like get a t-shirt that says adventurer and that the universe is like, look at that adventurer.
Right.
The universe is saying, knows you and your naked self. It doesn't care what clothes you're wearing. That's a costume to the universe. And the universe is listening to your words and your feelings and all those emotions and what you're really anticipating. And I know what it's like to have to dig yourself out of the ditch when you're down and life is challenging. And you have journeyed that in your own ways as well. And we've been in that place where life was incredibly challenging at one point. And we had to uncover these tools and this language and this understanding. And it's not meant for just you, Lacy, or just me. And anybody who teaches or talks or speaks or writes or creates or whatever in this field of energy consciousness and this conscious awareness, this world of that, we understand that you have to put these things into practice so you can choose which life you want to be living. And there was a certain point that I realized that the pain or uncertainty of trying these new tools out, right, and becoming more conscious of my lens and my words and my feelings and how I was moving through my day, I was more willing to take a risk on that than to sit in the soup that I was feeling with all the challenges. And that usually is a pivotal point for some people, where they hear this concept and they either say, I'm going to try that out. But some people have been so used to saying to themselves, well, that might work for other people, but not me, because I've got this 10-foot boulder, right? And maybe in the example of life's a journey, there's no boulder, there's just a bunch of gravel in front of you, right?
Right.
And so there's no boulder at all. That boulder became gravel that you're walking on, and it's fine, right?
Right.
It's okay. And then
Following the path.
Yep. In the present moment.
One step in front of the other.
Feeling very grounded on these great rocks.
Right.
They're helping me in the journey. Right?
Right.
And then you have the adventurer, right? Who is either there's no rocks and there's no boulder, but they're in an easy flowing river. Yep. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or they're definitely in some kind of flowful environment where all they have to do is say yes to the day and everything's lining up for them in whatever way that's going to materialize and show them that day. But there is something where there's no impediments in the path. There's nothing blocking. And even if a boulder comes out of nowhere and starts rolling through the adventurer's experience, they just say, oh, look at that boulder. Mm-hmm. I wonder where it's going.
Yeah, right.
Maybe I should follow it.
Right. Well, and the adventurer often feels like they have a lot more choice.
Oh, there's so much more choice.
So I can follow the boulder. I can let it pass. I can jump on top of it and do a dance. I mean,
I can get out my camera and take pictures of this awesome boulder that's gaining some momentum or whatever. And they totally have that, exactly, the availability and accessibility of choice. And they know that, and they'd say, you know what? I'm going to let that boulder pass me by. I took a ride with a boulder yesterday. Today, I want to surf. I'm going to go in the ocean and I'm going to have an adventure there. And they totally change venues, and all of a sudden they're in a whole different world. The adventurer knows how to change the platform, change the template, change the pathway, right? They can choose the timeline they want to experience.
So Maria, I'm gonna put you on the spot here and ask a question, especially during these times, because we can't completely ignore what is going on in our world today.
Precisely.
And there's so much, there's so many layers, there's so much depth, there's so much breadth. And what would you say to people, because sometimes I think you and I don't know, maybe I'm making this up, but I think some people can listen to us and say, well, that's fine for them, but I could never have that attitude, or they're just Pollyanna-ish or something like that.
Whatever those words are, they're matching exactly the vibration. And I'm just going to say that. They're matching exactly the vibration that you actually feel and emote energetically. So if you're in that place and you're listening to us and thinking, that doesn't happen. Why are they always so happy? The rest of us are suffering, but Marie and Lacy seem to always have bliss. What's your question?
Well, if one pair of eyes is looking at if there were three pairs of eyes looking at the same events of the world
of 2020,
and one is somebody who sees life as a challenge, one is somebody who sees life as a journey, and one is somebody who sees life as an adventure. How would they, do you think, be experiencing our times right now in 2 to 3 sentences?
Wow, such a great question. Okay, here I go. The person who sees life as a challenge, these are the end times. The sky is falling.
Armageddon.
This is the end. This is the end. And there's a tremendous amount of fear, and they don't know how they're going to go out, right? How their last days, what this is going to really, it's just, there's no way out. They're tremendously triggered. There's a lot of fear, and there's going to be a lot of suffering. Yeah. There's just a tremendous amount of suffering for themselves and for everybody else. And I actually don't want to be mocking anybody, because there are actually a lot of people feeling this way because they don't have the language, they don't have the lens, and they don't have the tools. And I would, in all my work, I call that your compass, your lantern, and your map. So in my work as frequency writer, that a lot of people know I have, right? I talk about that a lot in my podcasts and in my blog posts. So when you don't have a lantern that's going to help you see, and you don't have a map that's going to give you some of the coordinates of where you are, right? And what was it?
Compass.
And you don't have a compass that's going to help guide you, in this new terrain. You're just out there lost, and you don't have any resources. And everywhere you look through the lens that you see, everybody else is struggling, right? Except for a few people that seem to have really good luck. But otherwise, it's really, really painful. And people have lost their jobs through this whole pandemic, right? There's a lot of people's lives have been turned upside down. There's been health crises. I mean, the reality of the virus is very frightening for a lot of people. And so, that lens, that wasn't one sentence, I should say, but that one lens, it's the end times. It's just like this, just trigger and fear and suffering and lack. There's not enough resources. There's not enough solutions. There's no way out. And we just kind of have to struggle together, and we have to try and protect ourselves from everyone and everything, because everything's suspect, because life is so challenging. Yes. And I can't trust myself, and I can't trust the world around me.
And I can't see any solution
and
or
I can't
any way
see any
out.
solution. And it is an excruciatingly painful place to be. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people in that place. Yeah. And this particular virus and this particular unfoldment on the planet, it doesn't target anyone's skin color, anyone age, anyone gender. It's it's indiscriminate in that way, and it finds us all. So the person who's looking at their life through I am challenged in these times, there may be many people listening to this and actually still feeling, even with this podcast, okay, but whatever, but you didn't give me the lamp, the compass, and the map.
So now let's talk about
the journeyer. So life is a journey, and this was totally unexpected in my life. I don't really know where it's going. I don't know where it's leading me. I can't really worry about it, right? I can't go into fear about it, because fear is not going to help me. I don't know the solution to it yet, but I know that I can trust, Creator. I can trust the creation. I can trust Source. I can trust myself. I know that good things come to me if I can just show up and be present and meet the challenges as they come.
And I would say, and take the next right step.
And take the next right step. That's exactly right. And I trust that next right step will be there for me. I don't know what it is, but when it shows up, I'll know, or I'll get a nudge to try it out and say I'll feel support in that next step, and it'll come to me, and I know it'll be there, right? So you can hear in the person that life is a journey. They're not really negative, right? They're not super positive in this metaphor that we're using today. Yeah. But they're okay. They're going to be okay. Whatever it's going to happen is the virus may not feel okay to them, right? They may not be embracing the virus as an experience they want to be having, or all the impacts it's had in their life, but they have a sense inside. It's like a calm neutrality. This too shall pass. I'm going to be okay. I am okay, right? And we're going to figure this out. Solutions will show themselves.
And I think this person, would you agree, has the lantern, the compass, and the map in the backpack, and they know that. I mean, they know.
I think they have an awareness. They don't fully have it activated, but they kind of have a sense that somehow those
things exist.
They can access a lantern and a compass and a map. They know they can meet any challenge because they'll find somebody who has the lantern, compass, and map, or they'll get access to it. Right? It's different than having it inside, right? Mm-hmm. So in that metaphor, and it isn't the end times, right? It isn't what the adventurer is going to feel about it. It's just life is a series of experiences, and there's some positive and some negative, and I'm going to ride the waves.
And meet him in the present moment and take the next right step. Yep.
And for some people are also able to ride out these storms of all the impact of this virus and how it's been handled around the world and all the belief systems that people have about it. They're able to witness that and still stay in that fairly neutral place, just taking the next step, going to work, or if they've lost their job, taking the next step without fear. Right? Without a lot of emotion, just taking the next step to get themselves positioned for another job, for another opportunities, taking the next step, right?
Doing what they can online.
Doing what they can. I mean, really, they're okay. They're they know they're okay.
Yeah.
They're kind of solid.
Yeah.
Remember, they've got that gravel underneath their feet, and they're walking on a solid path, and they're going to be okay.
Right.
Right. The challenge, people that life is a challenge, it's like the earth's going to open up and swallow them whole.
Yeah.
And in the adventurer, right, life is an adventure as we look through the lens of 2020 and what's happened so far and what may still be yet to come. The adventurer takes always the next right steps, knows like with enthusiasm that the next right step, or actually like 5 next steps are available to them, and they get to choose which one feels the best. And that's just today, because tomorrow there could be 10 more next steps, right?
Right.
And they get to choose. And it doesn't mean that we have too many choices and the adventurer gets overwhelmed. It actually just means they know they have a plethora of choice. And while all this is going on and people are losing their jobs, if they were one to lose their job, they'd be like, I've been thinking and questioning the last 3 months, should I even be in this job?
Right.
Oh my gosh, this is such a gift.
I see it as an opportunity.
It's such a blessing. It's such an opportunity. And they surf themselves and say, I've always wanted to take like 2 months and, go down to Australia, or I've always wanted to do X. And they
spend more time with my kids.
They use this opportunity to spend more time with their family, to create that business that they always wanted to launch, but they were always so busy. Now they have time, and they've gotten some stimulus checks, or they're getting unemployment, and they have a little bit of a bridge that they can move into something else. And even if they loved their jobs and their job is on hold, or if they've been furloughed or whatever those things, and they might be going back, they're also listening and saying, hey, do I want to go back to that? Because the whole world is changing, and maybe it's time for me to make a change. Right? Or I so look forward to going back to what I've been doing, but I'm going to create some new classes that I'll teach if I'm a teacher. Or I'm going to use this time to get really creative about this, or set up a side business. They're really filled with a passion and a zest for life, and life is just beginning. Every day, it's the beginning times. Every day is a brand new day, and every day is bringing brand new blessings. And they're creating it.
And brand new lessons. That's something I feel a lot, is an openness to whatever this is a reflection or a mirror for me to learn more about me. And that's exciting, because I want to learn more about me. I want to become as self-aware as I can. I want to meet myself and grow myself every day.
Exactly. So the adventurer kind of takes the reins of their life, like the lawnmower, the self-propelling. Yeah. And they're at the driver's seat. They're the author with the pen. Mm-hmm. They're writing their script. They're writing themselves checks filled with money.
Right.
They're, whatever it is, they're having that experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there are challenges. And I don't know if I'll share this one example, because I think it's good for people to see this, that, in this COVID situation, we're all, our own family is going through that as well. And we've had an air conditioning unit go out on the second floor of our home, and it is summer. and it's hot. And there's been, earlier on, we've had some times where income was less, right? Because we've been affected like everybody else. And yet we have this nice big expense that's come in the adventure of our lives. And I think we still have enough skills that we can look and say, okay, we could say, it's like we could talk like that, right? We can grunt and groan and have the life is a challenge. So life is a challenge. How would you respond to feeling, Lacy? I'm going to ask you now. What would you say about the air conditioner
as a
challenge?
I just can't believe this has happened to us at this time. I mean, what else could there possibly be? I mean, there's COVID and there's a lot of things, protests and now this. And I have to sweat at the same time. I'm also sweating about all these other things.
I don't have the money to buy that new unit, whatever that's going to cost, right? I've never had enough money to maintain my life. And here this happens on top of everything else. Right? So that's the challenge. If we're looking at the journeyer, life is a journey.
Yeah. I would say, well, okay, let's sit down and talk about how we're gonna make this work. Let's research our options. Let's count our money. Let's see what we can make happen. I know we have air conditioning on the first floor, so we can, sleep on the first floor, and we will do that until we figure out how we're gonna.
So we can meet the needs of the heat upstairs by coming downstairs, finding that solution to buy us some time to take the next right step, to do some research of what is the way out? I know the way is here somewhere. Yeah. I just have to really trust and listen and summon in some support.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get some estimates from different companies, because maybe somebody will come in, or maybe there's a sale somewhere, right? I'm sure there's something that's going to show up for us. That's life as a journey. Life is an adventure. What would you say?
Well, there's something you and I say all the time, which is, things always turn out better than we can imagine. So as somebody looking at life as an adventure, I see this, I always feel that feeling of something is going to happen with this situation that is going to be better than we could imagine. It could be that insurance decides to pay for 2 brand new units because both our units are 22 years old. It could be it highlights something else in our life that is going to take us to another level with ourselves.
Maybe this was a blessing because of a safety issue that we can't even see.
Right.
But the universe is protecting us because it's always got our back, and it's always helping to propel us forward in the best way possible.
Right.
So I know the funds will come. I know whatever it is that we need will be taken care of. And we just have to keep trusting and enjoying the conversations we're having with all these amazing contractors. We always attract some of the most incredible people.
Yeah.
And we're just so fortunate to have so many people that we can trust to choose from that come into our life experiences, because that's how we live, and we attract people that live in that same way.
Right.
So we're going to have an adventure with this air conditioning unit.
Right.
That's going to be awesome.
Right.
And it's only going to bring blessings.
That's right. Amen.
And so, and so even people hearing this, this is just a mild example. I realize that there could be people listening to this and they have things far more challenging than an air conditioning unit. I guess it's a first world problem, right, to have this as an example. But it's still an example of, it isn't unexpected. It meets that criteria. Something unexpected happens that could be seen as a challenge or, or an adventure. And that's a stimulus that comes in. We get to choose our response. And then ultimately there's going to be a solution to whatever. And we're going to, in each of these scenarios, we're still facing the lack of an air conditioning unit that's operable in the summertime with a lot of people and beings that live in our house, right?
Right.
So we're still facing that, and it's our perception as to how we're going to experience that task, that challenge, that, whatever that is that's come into our life that is the loss of air conditioning right now. And we could experience as the person who's challenged. We could experience the person who's having a journey. We could experience it as a person who's having an adventure. And because I know those tiers of perception in my life, and I have these tools, and I've practiced all of them. I know what it's like to feel no way out, and these are the end times. I know what it's like to feel like this is good, I'm right where I need to be, and whatever I need is going to show up. And I'm just going to keep, taking the next step. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm trusting it will. We could be there too. But I think you and I have lived there for a good bit. And sometimes if I can't get to the adventurer level, sometimes I'll choose to go back to the journeyer if I can feel the negative emotions coming. I know how to, I don't know if I'd say downgrade, but I know how to go at least into neutral, because if it's a false high,
correct,
then you're actually vibrating fear, because you're working so hard to convince yourself you're so positive that you're actually summoning negative feelings.
Exactly.
And whenever that happens, I slip back into neutral.
Yes.
I go right back that life is a journey. I really don't know how this is going to go. I don't feel solutions, and I'm not feeling particularly blissful. But I can get to a place of trust, and I know that there's a solid path for me. I know there's a pathway being made.
And you bring up such a good point. It's a tool within the tool. So today, we're rounding it out, and we've talked about this concept of perspective and perception, and the tool of being able to look at life through a different lens, right? But the tool within a tool was something you just said. It just, I could feel the gear shift in the car, that I have to also be able to shift between the perceptions if I need to. Preferably if I have, I don't want to, I'll move from adventure to journey or journey to adventure.
And at times, sometimes that can happen. We just need to be also authentic and real with ourselves.
Right.
If we're in the journey and then we feel challenged, we might just need to give ourselves a moment to say, well, if I let my challenged person speak, let's just get it out.
Yeah.
What does he or she need to say?
Yeah.
This sucks. This is terrible. This couldn't be worse timing. Right. There's all the emotions that people can have, or I'm terrified, or, really, I'm triggered, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed. We can just give ourselves, just get it out. I don't recommend going on and on and on with that, because then you become a creator. Putting a time
but
I would say even just give yourself a good 10 minutes, maybe 30 minutes if you have to just get it out, write it out, say it out, just get it out.
Right.
And then I'd say now I'm going to put on my life as a journeyer, right? I'm a journey. And from the journey perspective, I can get myself to neutral. I don't have to know the solution. I don't also have to give in to all the fear and the overwhelm. I can just get to neutral and say something better is going to show up here, and I'm going to trust that a path is going to be made. And I just really have faith in that. And so the only reason we can talk about this, Lacy, is because we've already done a lot of this journey. And there can still be something that triggers me into challenge, and I'll watch it happening. But because I've done this for a long time, I can witness a challenged person. I can even give myself 10 minutes to get out my emotions if I need to. I can more easily slip into the neutral. And on my better days, I can really enjoy the adventure. And we want to be able to move in all those different gears, right? And that's when you have some tools. And when you can do that without thinking about it too much, and the more you practice it, it's like visual motor rehearsal.
Yeah.
It's like sensory, emotional rehearsal.
Yep.
We really start to move between those different vibrational octaves, and then we have experiences that match that.
Absolutely.
And if we can't shift into the journey and we can't shift into the adventurer, we will witness ourselves have a challenge and say, oh my gosh, I really didn't have to go through it that way, right? But next time when I see that fork in the road, and I could embrace the challenge, or I can move into journey and I can take some inner steps to get myself there, right? And if somebody's listening to this and they want to know more of those steps, they can also go back and listen to some of our podcasts from last year. They can, there are tools. There are so many tools for us about working with energy, shifting our perception, changing the lenses that we have.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to bring in this one song. Janice Stanfield was a musician and a singer and a songwriter that I found, interestingly, when I was in my time of greatest challenge.
That's right.
I didn't think about that until just now.
Yep.
So when I was either looking for a quote or something to share in the podcast today, I remembered this song. And so for others in the journey, because we're all in a journey in 2020, and at some level, if we're in the hero's journey, in the best way we can be at 0 point. We can be really neutral, and we can be trusting the journey of 2020 to take us wherever we need to go as an individual and as a collective. The adventurer gets to have a little bit more fun, but it takes more tools.
Yes.
Jana was a tool for me.
Yes.
When I was trying to move from being challenged into that place of neutral or just feeling better in some way when I was really suffering. And she has a song called Turning My Stumbling Blocks to Stepping Stones. And if I remember, I'll try and put a link to that in the description section of this video, okay? But I just wanted to read the first line of each of the, is it a stanza?
Yeah.
The first line of each of the stanza, and then she sings a whole 4-minute song about this. And if you're somebody who resonates that you'd like to turn some stumbling blocks into stepping stones, that person who's experienced a tremendous amount of challenge right now and only sees that 10-foot boulder, is wondering how they can alchemize that boulder into some stepping stones. They're thinking that. And Jenna, shared this song with all of us. And it really helped me because when I didn't have the stepping stones and I did have the stumbling blocks, it helped me see, it helped me tap into that awareness that I can change those blocks into stepping stones. So the first line is, I'm turning my stumbling blocks to stepping stones. Then I'm turning my possible to probable. And then she says, I'm turning my some days into someday soon. Then she says, I'm turning my problems into challenges. I'm turning my trials into proving grounds. Right? And then she comes back again and says, I'm turning my stumbling blocks to stepping stones.
Yeah.
And so it's a song that's giving people a bridge to move from the different levels of sight.
Yeah.
She totally is helping us with that. And if you like that song, if any of our listeners like that song, she's got a lot more, a lot of songs like What Would I Do Today If I Were Brave? She's got a lot of great songs.
Or What Would I Do If I Had No Fear?
What Would I Do If I Had No Fear, right? She's got some amazing songs. And people like that, these are solutions. These are tools.
Yep.
These are allies in the journey. And if you play that, and you can listen to that through your day, even when you're feeling low and challenged, you can hear somebody else know some tools for you just by listening to them sing it or listening to podcasts sharing this with you. And if we can be somebody and a voice of empowerment, we only acquire and access that empowerment by making the choices ourselves with how we're going to choose to see, knowing that we have choice, choosing our words, and knowing that we have the power of choice in our words that ultimately is going to bring our experiences. And we can be the first ones to step up and test that out. We can be the first ones to step up and say, well, I don't know that I believe what they're saying, but what does it hurt me at all if I try it, right? And I think that's what happened for us. We were so challenged that the pain of being challenged was greater than trying something new. So we did try something new. And once you see it work and you see it unfold for you and you attract all these new experiences that feel better than what you were in, you become willing. You become willing. And that's what I hope. There is a tremendous amount of challenge on the planet. I don't in any way in this podcast want to be mocking anybody. I think when we're laughing and sharing this exchange and we talk about the different lenses of perception, Lacy, we know from a lighthearted, a trusting, heart-filled place, knowing that we all can shift our perception no matter the circumstances we're in. And if we can just have those few degrees of a perception shift and a perspective shift, we can actually create new pathways and new options and new stepping stones that can lead us forward. And we trust that deeply, and we trust that for anyone listening, that is true for all of us. It is just the way this universe works, and we haven't been privy to that in our school systems. I think the whole curriculum of educating our children could change, and we could empower them. And the first thing that starts with awareness of our lenses of perception and our language. Our language is critical. How we're talking to ourselves and others is the command and wand to the universe of what we want to experience. And there you have it, Lacy, moving from a perception of challenge to adventure, regardless of what the stimulus is.
That's right.
We get to choose our response and ultimately the experience of the solution. So I want to thank you, Lacy, and our listeners for joining us today in our Fireside Chats, in this one and the others that we've done before. They're always there for people to tune into. I have one important announcement to share just at the end of this podcast that will take effect now and going forward. We were sending out a monthly newsletter via email, but we are in the process of making some changes right now. And that's one thing that's going to discontinue from this moment forward. So we have more time to create some other offerings and just change things up a little bit here. And so we're going to continue our Fireside Chats podcast. We'll continue having some guests on from time to time. We're going to bring a couple of other new things into the fold. And I just wanted to let people know, if you are looking for that newsletter, we're not going to continue with that. I just don't think it's the most effective way of communicating with our listeners, and there are other ways. And we want it to be more engaging. We want the adventure, right? We want the adventure.
Yes.
And I want to invite our listeners to, find us on the social media platforms. You can find us on our websites, and please like and subscribe and share this video, and like and subscribe on this channel. Please help us spread the word about Whole Soul School and Foundation. We're still a small nonprofit with a big vision of having a global impact. And we invite people, therefore, to visit our website at www.wholesoulschoolandfoundation.org, where you can also see our podcasts and our videos, and you can donate there. And every donation helps us to expand the vision that we have of making a bigger impact and supporting other nonprofits and other organizations that are doing phenomenal things in the world to help and support people, especially in this time of challenge and hardship. And also you can tune in on Spotify and the many podcasting platforms. I don't think Stitcher, but Apple iTunes, and some of the other platforms. So search for us, Whole Soul School and Foundation, and see which way is the easiest way for you to tune in, by video or by audio podcast. And so thank you, Lacy. Thank you for
Marie.
joining me in this awesome
wonderful
conversation.
Yeah.
And I look
a real critical tool, especially in these times, is to become aware of how the lens through which you're looking, and to find ways to shift. This is really, I think, really important and really enjoyable to talk with you about today.
It is. It's really important in these times, and for any time, but for particularly right now. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity we have to just plant these seeds in people's awareness, and that they can come back and join us again. And so until next time, have a great week, and we'll be talking to you soon. Blessings.